continuing in the Henry Louis Gates Jr. series, Finding Your Roots, which was basically the final culmination, because the story goes that after they did Faces of America, they basically had to rename it because Faces of America was actually copywritten and they didn't realize. And I think they ran into legal trouble with it. And so when they decided to change it, they decided that they would change the format from that 4-episode format to doing singular episodes, just featuring, I think in the first season, they would do like 2 or 3 guests an episode. But then over time, they've dwindled it down to just 2 or 1. Maybe there's been 3 guests in episodes still. But it feels like a lot of just 2 people episodes. I'm just going to go ahead and plop it down in S tier, because that's definitely an S tier. But, you know, with this show, it has been the most influential, I feel like, in terms of modern genealogy overall. It seems to be the show that whenever I talk to people who aren't really that well versed in genealogy and stuff, it seems to be more well known than Who Do You Think You Are, in my opinion. Just in talking to random people and being like, yeah, you know, genealogy, this and stuff, you know, oh, like Finding Your Roots, or even, oh, like the show from that guy from Harvard on PBS, or, you know, stuff like that. For some reason, it seems to have a much broader audience than Who Do You Think You Are, at least in the US. I'm sure in the UK and elsewhere throughout the world, throughout the world, I'm guessing it's probably different, but I don't know for sure. But I would assume that just because, you know, American-based show on PBS, publicly supported test or whatever they're considered. So yeah, Andrea says, hands up if you cry at every Finding Your Roots episode. Yeah, no, I've definitely cried at some, but I think there's one show that I've probably cried at the most, and that's one that a lot of people want me to do reactions to, and we're not going to get to it just yet, but I think people know which one I'm saying. Yeah, so Weeping Scorpion, who's in the Faroe Islands, says, I've actually never seen an episode of Finding Your Roots. I guess because coming from Europe, Who Do You Think You Are is just much easier to find. Yeah, I mean, Who Do You Think You Are has tons and tons of various country-based series, I guess you could say. You know, the most well-known ones are obviously the UK version, the US version, and then the Australia version. But there was, I think, like a season in Canada. There's a New Zealand version. There's a Dutch version. There's, all sorts of various language versions of Who Do You Think You Are, on top of, I know there's lots of different TV shows around the world that are, in those languages that are, whatever, non-English languages. So I probably would not know that well about them. But with Finding Your Roots being American-based, for one, I feel like it cuts out a lot of the non-English speaking countries. Granted, a lot of people speak English, but I feel like, even so, you go to a country where they don't really speak English that much. They just kind of use it more as a, tool for when they need to use it mostly. I'm guessing, those countries aren't going to be playing English-based stuff that much unless it's like a really big, well-known thing, or, something that just hits in that country for whatever reason. And I'm guessing Finding Your Roots, talking about Americans and their ancestry, isn't going to be that interesting to a lot of those kinds of folks. But I think it's really just mostly comes down to the, PBS and that kind of a station that it is, and that it's just, that's a very American-based station. It's like a lot of the local channels, and, those shows don't even get that huge of an audience in the US, I think, so yeah. All right. Yeah, but very worthwhile to check out if you can. I think if you have a VPN, you can set yourself in the US and then go and watch it on PBS for free. Although it is somewhat limited on what episodes you can, which is why I got the Passport in the first place. And then they started to block stuff from even Passport users, just like, nope, you can't watch these episodes. Like, I remember one time I wanted to go watch the Andy Samberg episode because I just love that episode, because it's such an amazing show of how you can utilize DNA and the paper trail to figure all of this stuff out and then for it to circle back around together. But I went to go watch that episode, and you're not allowed. Doesn't matter that I pay for passport. Nope, not allowed. Okay. Let's see. Oh, VPN. Wait. Sorry, I missed. Yeah, I'm based in London, UK, but I just use a VPN to pretend. Yeah, definitely. And if you're in the US and you want to watch a lot of the BBC stuff, if you have a VPN, just set yourself in the UK, and then you can watch a lot of the BBC stuff, which there's a lot of good stuff there too. Yeah, Portuguese, who do you think you are? Weeping Scorpion says Danish and Swedish versions. Nikolai Koster Valda was on the Danish one. I'm sure I just butchered that. Is the research that is done on finding your roots even that impressive? I think it varies. I don't know exactly how they do their research setup. I've always really wanted to be a part of it. Wish they would have reached out to me. And I know that I have a lot of genealogy colleagues genealogy colleagues, I guess would be the best way to put it, who have been tapped to help research stuff in the show. Because, as I try to show in a lot of my episodes with the YouTuber Family Tree series, it really does take a lot of specialty knowledge when you get into new areas that you're just not familiar with. And when you do something like finding your roots, where you're tracing all these various people's ancestries, you constantly run into just niche towns and cities and population groups and whatever, that it takes kind of an expert to really get into it. And so I know they tap a lot of people for it, but at the same time, with Jewish genealogy stuff, there's a lot of stuff that I've seen them say that is kind of wrong. They've said multiple episodes, like, a lot of records aren't available because they were destroyed during World War II. And that's, while it's slightly true, it's kind of more of a myth than it is true, because for one, a lot of the records that have been destroyed were mostly destroyed not necessarily because of war and stuff, but more of just like different errors, like the Kamenets, I can never pronounce it, but the Kamenets Pulaski archive, there was a fire in like 2001 or something, which destroyed a lot of stuff. But then in a lot of recent years, through digitization efforts, not only have they actually discovered that a lot of what they thought was destroyed in that fire is still there, and a lot of it's a little bit more readable than they thought. But on top of that, there's also copies of various records they thought were destroyed that were in other archives for various reasons. So, I think it's a sliding scale. There's going to be some research that they've done that is very meh, and then other stuff that's really amazing, and I feel like that's with a lot of genealogists. I mean, even for my episodes of YouTuber Family Trees, there's some episodes where I am doing a ton of research that takes a lot of effort, and I'm like, really proud of myself, even though it's like took a lot to just find a little. And then others where the story is just kind of like on a platter, and you just kind of like, okay, well, here it is, and here's that, and whatever. Like with the Drew Durnil stuff, it seemed like that at first, but then it actually was like, it was a little bit of information here and a little bit of information here and a little bit here. And like, there were biographies and autobiographies, and they were only, short stuff. They, it wouldn't even be considered really a book, more of like a pamphlet or, a couple of pages. And so you get information from this person, then a little bit more from this, and then get information using the real records. And so it was like having to knit together this entire story, and it took a lot of work and research to really confirm each piece of that story. So, I kind of give them a little leeway, having done my own sort of stuff with that. Like, there's some episodes that I've done that I'm just like, I mean, I love the episode and it's great information, but like on the genealogy side, I really didn't do that much. I found people who had done stuff already. But there's definitely been stuff that they've put out there on Finding Your Roots that's like, I disagree. All right, let's see. Try to jump through a lot of these and get back to the ranking.